For this assignment, I chose to use the first scenario, which was the home health team scenario. And this scenario really touches on some of the core values of the Code of Ethics. The first would be integrity, which is to act in a trustworthy manner. Obviously, the social worker in question did not act in a trustworthy way when they decided to ask this client to essentially lie for them. And the second core value would be dignity and worth of the person. So that's to respect the dignity of the person and choosing to not wear a mask, especially around someone who has a compromised immune system, is really just not acting with respect at all. So in this scenario, the Code of Ethics would suggest that you consult directly with the coworker, and then from there you can elevate it to the supervisor, the NASW, and the licensing board. So personally, I would go directly to our supervisor in this situation, and that's really because I already know this coworker is trying to intentionally be deceitful and dishonest. So I'm not convinced that if I go to them and tell them that, this was inappropriate behavior, that they would make any changes. So I feel it would be most appropriate to, approach our supervisor and tell them what I was told from the client and kind of let them handle it from there. And also, get my supervisor's opinion on whether this needs to be elevated to the NASW or the licensing board. Which, may depend on whether it's the first time it's happened or if there's been, other issues with this particular social worker already. So in my current job, we do have a required masking policy. So, in my job, if this situation occurred, I would already know that that coworker broke that rule, that we do have to wear masks regardless of what client we're meeting with. And the fact that they asked the client to lie just kind of, adds another level to that. So again, I would just go directly to my supervisor. And there are a lot of impacts that this kind of scenario could have. First and foremost are the impacts on the client themselves. In this situation, there could be detrimental physical consequences to that client's physical health and well-being. That, are just not worth the risk. And furthermore, it could also impact their emotional, and mental well-being. They may become distrusting of healthcare entities, especially the company that we're working for. And if it's a company that maybe has other, kinds of workers there. Like my company, for example, has nurses, nurse practitioners, and therapists. We all work under the same company and we work with some of the same clients. So one of us, causing distrust could have that client, not trusting any of the other people that they work with. And so it may tarnish, the image of the whole company for that person. And if they, chose to talk to people about it or go public with what happened to them, it really could be detrimental to the company's image, even far beyond just that one client's view. There also would be impacts on the social worker who made this unethical decision. They may lose their job, they may lose their license, they may no longer get to act as a social worker or work as a social worker. So it really could be, a bad situation for them. And at the same time, it could be bad for me if I knew about this situation and I chose not to report it to anyone or say anything. That could fall back on me. I could wind up being written up. I could wind up losing my job or depending on how badly things turned out, maybe even my license as well, because, that would then be me acting unethically and, without integrity. So resolutions in this situation, first and foremost would be to educate that specific social worker, firstly on the Code of Ethics itself and why the way they acted was wrong, not just from a moral standpoint, but an ethical standpoint. And, under the NASW Code of Ethics, which they have chosen to uphold by being a social worker. So then from there, maybe even educating the company, taking it further and wider, trying to make sure that another scenario like that does not happen again. And lastly, I think it would be important to address it with the client directly, kind of assess how they're feeling, make sure a new social worker gets assigned if that's what makes them more comfortable to continue on with the agency, and just trying to ensure that that client is feeling safe and feeling respected after what happened to them.